The woman panicked as soon as she woke up and was so scared that she kicked her sleeping husband. But the strange thing is, no matter how hard she tried, it was useless. In order to find out whether her husband was dead or not, she hurriedly kicked him up to check. She shook his body with her feet. Unexpectedly, the next second the husband fell off the bed. She thought her husband would wake up, but suddenly a large amount of tomato juice flowed out on the floor. After realizing that her husband was dead, she was so scared that she screamed. But because their house was in the wilderness, there was no one living within 100 miles, so even if she shouted at the top of her lungs, no one would hear her. At first, she thought it was her husband. Her husband had locked her up on purpose, but now her husband was dead and could not die anymore. She could only rely on herself to find a way to break free, but her hands were locked tightly. Without a third hand, it would be extremely difficult. Just when Kai Hua was at a loss, there was a sudden sound of footsteps outside the door. At first she thought it was someone passing by, and then she started yelling at the top of her lungs. It wasn't until a hunting dog that hadn't eaten for 8 years came into her sight that she realized something was wrong. In order to prevent her husband from being left with no remains, the clever woman quickly grabbed a book from the bedside and threw it at the hound, but the next second the hound came back. She had no choice but to lower her head and burst into tears. But at this moment her dead husband suddenly stretched out a hand, but before she could be happy. Seconds later, she suddenly realized that she was hallucinating, and her dead husband was still lying on the ground, motionless. In order to avoid becoming the hound's dinner, the woman had to break her hand bones and pull hard. Unexpectedly, she actually got rid of the handcuffs. Excited, she quickly jumped off the bed to save the second hand. She gritted her teeth and tried hard to break free. She was about to go out to find someone for help, but when she turned around, she found herself still in bed. She realized that she had a mental problem. If she didn't find a way to break free, she might. She would go down and keep her husband company. In order to seek excitement, the man pushed his wife down on the bed without saying a word, then ran to the bathroom and took a pill in front of the mirror. But just as he climbed onto the bed and prepared to enjoy his happiness, he suddenly felt a severe pain in his chest, and then he fell headfirst into his wife's arms. There was no movement. At first the wife thought he was pretending, but when she kicked her husband off the bed, she found out that the unfortunate husband had already gone to the northwest in disgrace. In order to find someone to help him, he tried to pick up the phone with his feet, but because the table was too far away, it was useless. I was even so tired that my mouth started to feel dry. At this moment, he suddenly remembered the wooden frame above his head. There was a cup of water on the top, and sure enough, when he raised one side with his hand, the cup began to slowly slide to the other side. But when he finally got the cup of water, he found that he couldn't drink it from his mouth at all. Fortunately, he remembered a card on the wooden board at this time. He just took the card, made it into a straw and put it in his mouth. In this way, he finally drank the water after his dry mouth. Thinking of this, he realized that the water could not be drunk all at once, so he quickly put it back to its place in case of emergency. In order to regain my energy and think of a solution, he had no choice but to close his eyes and fall into a deep sleep. But before he could sleep for a few seconds, he suddenly found that the big wolf dog was eyeing his stinky feet again. He was so angry that he kicked it directly, but he didn't expect to provoke the big wolf dog. He was furious, realizing that if he didn't think of a solution he would be eaten by the hunting dogs. There is no way. He had no choice but to take the cup and smash it to pieces without saying a word, then gritted his teeth and cut his palm hard. Following a sharp scream, he actually used the blood to lubricate and break free from the restraints. In order to get the phone to call the police as soon as possible, he quickly picked up the key on the table and unlocked his other hand. But when he picked up the phone to call the police, he unexpectedly found that the phone could not be turned on because it was out of battery. He just wanted to call someone for help, but his phone was out of power and couldn't be turned on. In order to prevent the wound from getting infected, he quickly bandaged his palm and then prepared to take the car keys and drive away. But at this moment, the hound suddenly seemed to have discovered something, and a hideous old man came into view. In order to save her life, the woman gave him her diamond ring. Fortunately, the old man was a principled man. Not only did he not make things difficult for him, he even watched him leave the house. In this way, he successfully got to the car. I thought the danger was over, but at this moment, the ferocious old man appeared again. He was so scared that he bumped into the crooked tree and fainted. Fortunately, at this time, 2 swimmers. A passenger happened to pass by and took him safely to a nearby hospital. But since this incident, he has suffered from anxiety and phobia. Not only can he not sleep every night, he even often dreams of that hideous old man. At first, he thought the old man was his hallucination, but until he saw a news report in the newspaper, he realized that the old man was real. It turned out that this person often broke into other people's homes to extort money. Now that he has been arrested, he realized that all this was not a psychological problem. The woman finally returned to normal life. At this point, the movie ends. The title is Gerold's Game. If you like it, please like and subscribe this video. Thanks.